I recently helped a user who wanted to compare letter codes. So that looks something like this, where they wanted to return true if either letter in the first code matched in the second code, and false if no letters matched between them. So in the first example, A is present in both, so that returns true. In the second example, there are no common letters, so that returns false. Let's take a look at one way that this can be done. So I've rebuilt the relevant portions here to show this example. The first code, the second code, and the desired output. Now my base formula is going to be the search function, which says that it returns the position at which a string is first found within text, right? So let's say that I'm looking for the letter B, and I'm searching in D3. This will say that the letter B is at position 1. If I'm doing the A, it'll say that's at position 2. So that's going to be the innermost thing I'm going to do, but I need to do that for each letter in that first code. Here's where we're going to use some magic using the map and lambda functions with sequence. So I'm going to use map. What I'm going to be mapping over is not a real array, it's going to be a virtual array created with the sequence function. All right. Now the sequence I'm going to do, the number of rows is going to be the length of cell D2. I want to make this extendable, so I'm not just going to say sequence 2. Let's say that they wanted 3-letter codes or 7-letter codes, whatever you want that to be. So I'm just going to use the length of the code. I'm going to name that count or letter. Let's do that. Now I want to return each letter. So let's do the mid function. Mid returns a segment of a string with a string, a starting position, and the length that we want to extract. My string is going to be all of D2. We're going to start at letter, and we're going to extract 1. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. All right, that's returning A and A. Just to prove that this is actually returning what we want, let's replace that with A and T. So now A is first and T is second. Now that I have this, I can do some other manipulation looking for each of these letters in the second code. So instead of just returning the letter, I'm going to search for that letter, and we're going to search for that within D3. Excellent. So it says that the first letter, A, is found at position 2, and that the second letter is not found, right? Now, the way I'm going to go ahead and handle the logic is by simply using an if statement, because if statements take all numbers greater than 0 as true. It's a really nice little trick we can use here. But in order to do that, I need to come up with a single value from this. And right now I'm having 2 returns, one for each letter, and one of them's an error. So let's say that for each map, for each iteration, let's also throw an if error around this, and say that if there's an error, we're going to return nothing. Excellent. Now we're having 2 and nothing. Now I can actually sum all of that up, and it will give me a single answer. So if I go here, if I type in here, yeah, it's only returning a single answer. So now I can simply say if sum, because again, all positive integers return as true in an if statement, then that's going to be true, and if not, it's going to be false. Great. Let's go ahead and test this over here in column E, and that one's returning false. And just to make sure, absolutely sure, if I change this to a B, that will return true. And if I change this to BD, that will return false. So the main trick we're using here is using a map function over the length of the cell of the string, and then this mid function to break apart each letter so that we can search for each letter, each character within the second code. The rest of it is kind of just the necessary logics to get to that final answer, but that right there is really the trick that we're using here in order to look for any value in the first code in the second code.